the General Union and the Association of Employers no longer play cat and mouse and now get on famously. Former Prime Minister Mohamed Nzali was one of the witnesses at the London hearings.
Oui, Merci. Ben Ali n'a pas perdu son temps. Moins d'un mois après, le 7 novembre à 2 heures du matin, il a convoqué...
Ben Ali didn't waste any time. Less than a month after, on November 7th at 2 a.m., he summoned 7 doctors, but not to administer to the patient Bourguiba. He summoned them to the Ministry of the Interior and forced them to sign a medical certificate stating that Bourguiba was incapable of fulfilling the duties of the presidency. And so he proclaimed himself President of the Republic. The newspaper Le Monde thus spoke of a medical plot.
Il s'était auto-proclamé président de la République. Le journal Le Monde avait alors parlé de complot médical. Qui est M. Ben Ali? M. Ben Ali n'est pas un homme politique.
But who is Ben Ali? He is not a politician, he is a military man. When I was a Minister of Defense in 1968 and 1969, he was. I met him as a young commander. But Ben Ali was never in charge of a fighting unit. Mr. Ben Ali was always in charge of the Second Bureau, that is, military security, espionage.
M. Ben Ali a toujours été chargé du deuxième bureau, c'est-à-dire de la sécurité militaire, de l'espionnage.
The problem of police custody is very serious because before 1987 the government had amended legislation, presumably to give the individual better protection. That was when the maximum period was set at 10 days. But in practice this maximum is never respected. It can extend up to 5 months. And to show the world, that is, public opinion, that the maximum is respected, the date of arrest is falsified on police records. Thus, on a police record, it might appear that a person was held for perhaps 10, 15, 20, or 30 days, whereas in fact, he was held for 5 months. The crisis in Tunisia is first and foremost political, but extends to the country's social and cultural fabric. The people have always fought to preserve their Arab-Muslim identity, but the men in power close down mosques and control everything having to do with religion. A policeman shot and killed Tayyeb Hamasi outside a mosque because the young man was giving out religious literature. Since then, the number of victims has increased steadily.
العنف لم يكن حدثاً عابراً في تاريخ الرجل وإنما كان حياته كلها.
Violence was not a passing phase in Ben Ali's life. Rather, it was his life. His past was not one of a thinking or cultured man, but of a man who gathered intelligence.
لم يفرطوا في فرصة منذ أعلن بورقيبة عن اتجاهه نحو الديمقراطية. لم يفرطوا فرصة من أن يدقوا باب القانون ويعلنوا استعداد.
After Bourguiba announced that he would move in the direction of democracy, those who are labeled extremists never passed up an opportunity to knock on the door of the law, to say that they were ready to work within the framework of legality, and to make big concessions, including changing their name, to achieve their purpose. But in fact, the fight is against a totalitarian, dictatorial police state, which does not have a base of support in the people. Instead, the people, largely young and deprived, are increasingly demanding democracy, just like all other peoples. Today, repression in Tunisia is a generalized way of wielding power, so much so that security is no longer one of the state's functions, but rather the state has become a security institution. And the man who rules now always projects his training and his state of mind on the people and the country.
Et un fait qui est intéressant à constater, c'est que parmi les personnes qui avaient été arrêtées avant janvier 91,
What is interesting to note is that many of the people who were arrested before January 91 were then released without any charges having been made against them. So they were in custody for 3 or 4 months and then released without ever being charged with anything. Did anyone die while in custody? Yes, Amnesty knows of at least 7 cases of people who died in custody. Often the government denies that such people were in detention when they died. But independent doctors have written medical reports showing either that the injuries resulting in death were sustained under torture or that the person was in fact in detention when he died.
Ou que la personne était effectivement emprisonnée au moment de la mort. Donc la torture a soit hâté la mort ou carrément occasionné la mort.
Je vous parle franchement, je pense que certains pays d'Occident, les États-Unis, certains pays européens,
Frankly speaking, I think, say, a Western country, the United States or a European country, would like, above all, to see stability in underdeveloped countries, in the North African countries, the Arab countries, and especially those countries ruled by leaders who are fragile, morally speaking, because they would like to preserve their short-term trade and economic concerns, not the long-term ones.
de préserver leurs intérêts commerciaux et économiques à court terme, pas les intérêts à long terme. Les idées, Monsieur le Président, ce n'est pas à vous que je veux le dire, ne peuvent pas être combattues. Même les idées, surtout les idées islamistes, qui se réclament d'une...
I don't have to tell you, Mr. Chairman, that ideas cannot be fought, especially Islamic ideas that stem from a spiritual vision or a view of civilization. These and other ideas cannot be fought through the bludgeon, through repression, through massacres. They cannot be fought, but rather countered only by other equal or superior ideas. Mr. Ben Ali is the best ally, not of the Ennahda, but of the extremists, of unknowns who may appear today or tomorrow, and who may drag Tunisia into a period of turmoil and instability hitherto unknown.
qui apparaissent ou qui apparaîtront demain et qui peuvent faire entrer la Tunisie dans une étape de turbulence, d'instabilité et dans l'inconnu.
Unrest exploded during a student meeting on May 8, 1990. For the first time since independence, the police entered the campus and fired on students. 5 of them died. While the international press carries news of human rights violations in Tunisia, the ruling party's paper, Le Renouveau, speaks of new gains.
Because one day, one act of evidence, they pursued the student in university. They killed 5 students within the university. It never happened even during the colonial period. If there is a problem on Tunisia, they will not consult the Tunisian. No, they will consult Mr. Who and who?
Following the student massacre, a number of demonstrations were staged outside Tunisian embassies abroad, in Paris, Ottawa, Washington, and other cities.
إن الذي يميز تونس أيها السادة عن الأنظمة التي سادت في رومانيا وفي أوروبا الشرقية وفي كثير من البلاد الإفريقية واللاتينية.
What distinguishes Tunisia, gentlemen, from the regimes that rule Romania, Eastern Europe, and a number of countries in Africa and Latin America is not the degree of repression, since repression in Tunisia today is unparalleled in any Arab country. What distinguishes Tunisia is the fact that the repression is enveloped in slogans about human rights and democracy. Another thing that deeply saddens me, that heightens the misfortunes of Tunisians, as Abdel Raouf has said, is not only that our people are experiencing the worst repression any people have ever had to deal with. I don't know if it is due to Tunisians' helplessness or some other unknown factor, but we have not been able to convey to the world the cries and suffering and misery of our people. That is what saddens us most. Is this really due to our own helplessness? Or is it because there is international protection for repression in Tunisia, and for those who practice repression in Tunisia?
حزننا حقيقة هل هو الأمر يعود إلى عجزنا أم أن هناك حماية دولية للقمع في تونس وللقائمين على القمع في تونس؟
The government has dissolved the Tunisian General Union of Students, representing 90% of the university councils. Its activists are arrested, and some of them sent far into the Kabylie Desert. The instigator of all this is none other than the Minister of Higher Education, Mohamed Charfi, the students' bête noire.
Je crois que les démocrates occidentaux
I think that Western Democrats do not understand us. That is, they are glad to conduct business with a country like Tunisia that is in a process of modernization. But if they were threatened in their country by a return to the Middle Ages, to corporal punishment, to slavery of women, they would understand us much better.
de retour à l'esclavage de la femme, ils nous comprendraient beaucoup mieux.
Du fait que ces personnes sont détenues, ce qu'on appelle incommunicados, donc elles n'ont aucun contact avec le monde extérieur, ça donne libre place à une
I know
torture,
that such people are held incommunicado. That is, they have no contact with the outside world, and that gives free rein for very brutal torture. Although the Tunisian government claims it is against torture, in actual fact, it has made no move to investigate cases of torture that have been brought to its attention by Amnesty, among others. Nor apparently does it want to give its officials clear orders to stop using torture. It isn't interested in prosecuting those in charge of torture. None have been brought to trial. That is, there has been the odd instance of reprimanding an official, but generally torture is practiced with impunity. The government's response to our reports is to claim that Amnesty has been influenced by the Islamists and that its information is biased. Our answer is that our reports are as objective as those we've made for 30 years on countries all over the world. And if our information is credible for all other countries, it should be for Tunisia as well. Thus we stand on that credibility to affirm that the events we have denounced in Tunisia are accurate.
Tous les autres pays, elles doivent nécessairement l'être pour la Tunisie, donc on peut vraiment s'asseoir sur cette crédibilité-là pour affirmer que les faits que l'on dénonce en Tunisie sont exacts.
Education in Tunisia has a number of shortcomings.
J'ai été 3 fois ministre de l'Éducation nationale. Je suis moi-même enseignant de formation. Et je vous résume la réponse parce que la réponse est...
I was Minister of National Education 3 times. I am a teacher by training. I will summarize my answer because the answer would be long, since the problem is vast. Today, the young people who attend school are affected, first of all, by a stringent selection process. That is, at all levels of education, from primary to secondary school, from secondary to higher studies, a large number of students are